At Thanksgiving dinner, after announcing that I had manipulated our dad into leaving me more money, my brother stood up, red in the face, and sobbed, "Okay, maybe I did steal from his account once, but it was only because I deserved it more." He thought a half confession would save him. Instead, my aunt pulled out bank records proving he had stolen thousands over years. Everyone turned away from him, and within a week, he was sued by 3 family members for fraud. I'm 42. Born and raised in Rockford, Illinois. Pretty average life until everything fell apart and then came back together, just not for my brother. Our dad passed in August after a long battle with pancreatic cancer. He was tough even near the end. The kind of man who rarely asked for help, but when it got bad, I stepped in. Every single day. I moved closer to his apartment, managed his pain meds, paid his bills, cooked, cleaned. Took him to the ER more times than I can count. My brother Craig? He called twice in 7 months. So when Dad sat me down last spring and told me he wanted to change his will, I didn't argue. He said I deserved more. He wasn't wrong. I didn't ask for it, but I accepted it. He updated everything with a lawyer. The house was left to me. About 70% of his savings, too. The rest was split between my sister Jamie and Craig. We hadn't told Craig yet. I didn't want a war during grief. Turns out we got a war anyway. Thanksgiving dinner was at Aunt Denise's, like it always was. Our family's tight in a weird way. We talk once a year, and then pretend we're close. Denise's house smelled like stuffing and cranberry sauce. The mood was already off. Dad wasn't there. His absence sat in the room like smoke. About halfway through dinner, Denise brought up the estate. She glanced at me, then at Craig. "I think it's time everyone knew what Harold wanted," she said. Craig stopped cutting his turkey. Put his knife down slowly, real slow, like a scene from a movie. He looked straight at me. His voice was quiet but nasty. "You manipulated him. You were always over there. You poisoned him against me." I didn't react. Just stared at him. "I took care of him," I said. "You didn't." That's when he stood up. Loud. Chair screeched back. His face was red, almost purple. "Fine. You want the truth," he shouted. Maybe I did take some money from Dad's account once. But it was because I deserved it. I did more for him than anyone knows. The room went dead. Jamie covered her mouth. Denise looked down. The only sound was the ticking clock on the wall. Then Aunt Denise did something I'll never forget. She pulled out a manila folder from under the sideboard, dropped it right onto the table next to the mashed potatoes. "You didn't take money once," she said. "You took money for years. Thousands of dollars." Craig blinked, confused. Like he hadn't heard her right. Denise opened the folder. Spread out paper after paper. Bank records. Check copies. Withdrawal slips. All showing money leaving Dad's account and ending up in Craig's hands. Craig tried to speak. Couldn't. Turns out, Dad had grown suspicious before he passed. Asked Denise, who used to be an accountant, to take a look. She found everything. Every forged check. Every shady gift transfer. ATM withdrawals from cities Craig lived in. It was airtight. Jamie pushed her plate away and got up. Walked out without a word. Then our cousin Brian stood. Craig had borrowed $5,000 from him a couple years back. Said he was paying off hospital bills. Now Brian knew where that money went. "You stole from your own dying father," Brian said. "You piece of garbage." Craig dropped into his chair, covered his face, started crying, loud and messy. It wasn't guilt. It was fear. Nobody comforted him. Not even Jamie when she came back in. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed, eyes cold. Denise leaned over. "Dad knew," she said. "He just didn't want to die angry." 3 days later, Brian, Jamie, and Denise each filed fraud complaints. Denise knew someone at the local prosecutor's office. They moved fast. Subpoenas were issued. Craig got served papers the next week. He called me, left a voicemail, said he was sorry, said he'd only done it because he felt left out, asked me to talk to the others, begged me to help him make it go away. I never called back. After the papers were served, Craig vanished. He didn't answer texts, didn't return calls, and his social media went dark. For a week, nobody heard a word. Jamie figured he skipped town. Denise thought he was hiding at his girlfriend's house in Peoria. I didn't care. But then the calls started. First one was from his ex-wife, Shannon. She hadn't spoken to him in over a year, but suddenly he was calling her nonstop, crying and ranting. Told her he was being attacked by his own family and needed a place to stay. Said he couldn't handle this alone. Shannon called me, told me she felt bad for him, but there was no way she'd let him near their daughter again. He always blames someone else, she said. I'm not putting Liz through that. I thought that'd be the worst of it. I was wrong. 2 weeks later, a lien was filed against the house Craig was renting. Turns out he hadn't paid rent in 3 months. His landlord, an old neighbor of ours, reached out to Aunt Denise. She told him the truth. That Craig had stolen from his dying father. The guy was furious. Said if he'd known, he'd have kicked Craig out months ago. Then the real hammer dropped. Jamie got a call from the state investigator. During their review of Craig's bank records, they'd found something strange, a second set of accounts. Ones our dad didn't even know about, hidden under a fake business name Craig had made up years ago. And there were transfers going back even further than we thought. Some of it came from a joint account Dad had opened to help Craig get on his feet in 2016. It was supposed to be for car repairs. Instead, Craig let it dry over 2 years. Denise took that information straight to her friend at the state attorney's office. Suddenly the case wasn't just a family matter. It was criminal fraud. Over $40,000. And that didn't include what he'd borrowed from other relatives he never repaid. The court sent Craig a letter. Appear or face a bench warrant. This time, he showed up. I wasn't there in person, but Jamie was. She told me he looked rough. Skinny, beard overgrown, like he hadn't slept in days. He walked in wearing a rumpled button-down shirt and jeans. No lawyer, just him. When the judge asked if he understood the charges, he didn't speak at first. Then he whispered, "Yes, Your Honor." Outside the courtroom, Jamie said he tried to talk to her. "I'm not the bad guy," he told her. "I just needed help. Nobody ever helped me." She didn't say a word, just turned and walked away. A week later, he called me again. Another voicemail. "You were supposed to be my brother," he said. "I didn't steal. I took what was already mine. You're just mad because he loved me more." He hung up. That night, Denise told me she was adding a civil suit. One that would try to seize what little assets Craig had left. A busted old truck, some furniture, and a savings account we now knew had Dad's money in it. It wasn't about getting the money back. It was about making sure he paid. It was like he couldn't take responsibility for even one thing. Instead of laying low, Craig went on the offensive. 3 days after Denise filed the civil suit, he started calling extended family. Not to apologize, to lie. He told them we were smearing him out of jealousy. Said Dad had promised him the money and I'd brainwashed him at the end. Claimed Denise had doctored the bank records. He even hinted that Jamie had mental health problems and couldn't be trusted. He spun it all like he was the victim. The sad, overlooked son who got tricked out of his inheritance by a greedy younger brother and a bitter aunt. At first, it didn't work. But then he found an opening. Our cousin Mark, someone we don't see much, got wind of the whole mess. He was always skeptical of Aunt Denise, thought she acted like she ran the family. Craig fed him lies for hours on the phone. Told him I forced Dad to cut everyone out. That Denise and I were trying to cover up our own mistakes by making Craig the scapegoat. Mark called me up screaming. Demanded to know what the hell was going on. I lost it. I told him everything about the forged checks, the hidden accounts, the voicemail, the court hearing. I even offered to send him the records. He went quiet, then said, "I need to think," and hung up. I didn't hear from him again. But Craig wasn't done. 2 weeks later, a letter showed up at Jamie's house. It was anonymous, typed, and signed, but we knew it was Craig. He accused her of ruining the family and tearing Dad's legacy apart. Said she should be ashamed for turning on her. only real protector. Jamie called me crying. Not because she believed it, but because it confirmed what we were dealing with. Craig was spiraling, and he wanted to drag us with him. Meanwhile, his case moved forward. Slowly. The court froze his accounts, subpoenaed more records. His public defender tried to delay things, said Craig was not mentally fit to stand trial. The judge ordered a psych evaluation. We thought it was a stunt. Turns out, Craig had a plan. The report came back a month later, and while it said he was fit for trial, it also listed personality disorder traits and narcissistic tendencies. His lawyer started building a case around diminished capacity. Denise was furious. Jamie said she saw it coming. But I wasn't worried, because 2 days later, a fourth person filed charges against Craig. And this time it wasn't family. The fourth complaint came from Mr. Klein, Dad's old friend and neighbor. He was 78, retired, with some memory problems. They used to sit on the porch together and talk for hours. After Dad passed, Mr. Klein hadn't been around much. We figured grief hit him hard. Turns out, Craig had been visiting him, offering to help with errands and handle his bills. He told Mr. Klein he was managing things like he did for Dad. The man trusted him, gave Craig access to his online banking. Craig drained nearly $12,000 over 6 months. When Mr. Klein's niece discovered it, she went straight to the police. They looped it into the existing investigation. And now, the state had a pattern, not just theft, but elder exploitation. That was the turning point. The prosecutors no longer treated Craig like a misguided family member. They treated him like a criminal with a system. Jamie sat in the courtroom during the first combined hearing. She told me Craig looked empty, like all the energy he'd put into blaming us had finally run out. He didn't speak, just nodded when the judge asked if he understood the charges. I didn't go to that hearing, but I showed up to the sentencing. Craig pled guilty to avoid trial. No more fake tears. No more stories. Just a quiet deal. The judge gave him 3 years in state prison, plus restitution to the family and Mr. Klein. They also added mandatory financial ethics classes and banned him from managing any other adult's finances again. He looked at me as they let him out. Didn't cry. Didn't yell. Just gave this look, like I was the one who betrayed him. But I wasn't done yet. I sold the house Dad left me, the one Craig thought would be his, and used part of the money to pay for a bench with Dad's name on it. It sits right in front of the VA clinic he used to go to. I go there sometimes, just to sit. Jamie's been rebuilding. She got a therapist, started volunteering with elder care groups. Denise is quieter these days, but she still comes by for coffee every Sunday. We don't talk about Craig much anymore. Not because we've forgiven him, but because we gave him all the chances he needed. Craig wrote me one letter from prison. Said he hoped I was proud that I won. I didn't write back, because this was never about winning. It was about doing what Dad couldn't bring himself to do, hold Craig accountable. And now, finally, someone did.